Yeah, have you been seeing any news lately?
Yeah, about Liv Elon said on his show a few days ago about Social Security's got people's panties in twist.
Yeah, what'd he say?
That it's a Ponzi scheme.
How's that?
What do you know what a Ponzi scheme is?
Well, yeah, it's the one where you get people to pay onto other, like, you pay for people's investment returns by getting more investors.
Yeah, essentially. And on some level, he's not wrong. It's just Social Security is one of those entitlement programs that people really like and don't want to
To get rid of.
No. Even though it's like the payment scheme doesn't really work the way it used to, where you had like, when the baby boomers were young, they had, they were the bulk population. So every paycheck they're getting money taken out, paying for existing retirees. But now the demographic, it hasn't really gone like each successive generation has been bigger. So now you have a lot more people pulling out than are paying in. It was like, back then it was like 50 working people per retiree, and now it's like 3 per retiree. Yeah. Like it's not in a good spot. But,
so we just gotta kill them all.
I mean, I was actually thinking about this earlier today. Like, how would
we kill all of them?
How would we kill all the old people? And
COVID.
I mean, COVID, but we need to be stronger this time. Used to be no, but in all seriousness, like how you
might get some fat people to accent.
I mean,
omelets and sacrifice.
Omelets and eggs.
Omelets and eggs.
Yeah. But I'll say, like, how would you ultimately try to fix that? I mean, you could always just throw more money into it, like make up some new tax or, adjust some existing tax bracket for that. But I mean, the government has no money. We have no money to pay for fucking anything. At this point, we don't even, we don't even really have the money to pay the interest on debt that we already do have.
Yeah, but the debt is made up anyway.
It is until it isn't,
I just don't want to. It literally could just be like, I don't really feel like it.
Yeah,
I'm getting rid of this.
I don't know what the ramifications of that is.
I'll give you a hit. Not that bad. China's done that a couple times. China did that. They had their whole housing market collapse. They had like their whole bank, the Evergrande Bank, like collapse. And it's just like American people who had money and that just lost it all. It's just like, fuck, sucks to suck.
Yeah, but like the yuan's not world reserve currency. Dollar is.
Well, but I think it would be more like
I don't know.
People want to find a different currency to use, but they're not going to flip their shit if, I don't know, like there are going to be artificial things to come in there and keep the dollar value if it got that bad. Because a defaulting on a loan like that would be, as you said, it's a ground shaking to the world reserve currency.
Yeah. And so it's like, kind of our...
Look at that. See that deltoid. You see the deltoid. How much you win right now?
Oh, 215.
You're actually looking pretty fucking jacked.
250.
That shoulder.
I've been fucking lifting, bro. I've been doing this thing like every time I pick some food up
you do some push-ups.
Work, I do push-ups, skip.
Fire. That's nice.
But
power of fucking weed.
Weed?
Your eye right now.
I wish.
I can see it in your eyes. You're greened out.
I'm greened out.
Jessica, no. I'm not on Delta 9 right now at all that I got from the gas station. I would never do that.
No, I'd be on THCA, you fucking peasant.
Yeah.
No. I wish one day I shall imbibe it again, but...
It's a good thing it's an anonymous podcast and no one knows who we are.
Yeah. But, we're
talking about Social Security and how to kill all the old people / fix it. Well, let's continue focusing on how to fix it, then we gotta come back to the old people, kill them all.
Right. That's the big one.
It's just, it's for sake
I
of
don't-
discussion. It's a thought
I
experiment.
mean, anytime we're worried about, I mean, people have been saying that Social Security is going to go bankrupt for a while now.
Mhm.
It
Yeah, I learned that when we were
hasn't.
kids.
Yeah, it hasn't. But I don't know. It's just like the way all these entitlement programs are being paid for. It's being paid for with debt, and
Are they?
yeah, I mean, we
Debt
have
to
no
who?
money. We have no money.
How does that work?
There's intergovernmental debt. So like one part of the government owes another part of the government money. There's debt to banks, to private individuals, people who buy like bonds and shit. Like it's a fucking mess. It's
How
such
can
a big it's such a big fucking mess that it's like I don't see anyone really cleaning this up, honestly.
I just, yeah, I don't know.
Like
I
if
mean,
you
I think it'll
wanted
get cleaned up one way or another. It's just, I think it'll be more hand wavy. No, because you're sitting here, you're like, this is fucked, this suck. Yeah, but dude, if you're the guy, if you're some of the people in charge of your seat, you've been watching it be this fucked for forever. The moment you get the power to do something about it, like, you're
I'm
probably
gonna
not,
not touch it at all,
well, it's somewhat of a made up issue, right?
make my trades and cash out.
Dude, I think the new record, the guy more than doubled his money. A
Yeah,
congressperson in the past year. He
they all
literally
do.
104%
They all do.
gain or some shit like
It's
that.
it's crazy. That's an amazing
No,
return.
I'm amazed at
I wonder,
they're
you
that
know, I mean,
good
I
at
guess
trading
they're just,
stocks.
I guess they're just super shrewd. You know, they're just
Yeah.
really good.
Well, I mean,
you know,
it's
that's
just-
why they
that's
went
why
into
they're-
politics.
That's why they're our
And
leader,
not,
because they're smarter. Yes.
yeah, right. But
I mean, I totally agree.
I don't know. I see a lot of the ditching about whinging, complaining about
Social
what
Security.
Social Security, but also everything that our government pours money into is gonna, there's a potential for it to get cut, and some of it'll suck, some of it won't, but ultimately, I think I could see the Democrats and the left putting up enough of a fight to keep a lot of it, to where it's just like you're not going to be able to solve this long-term debt problem because people just need shit now, and there's so many institutions and individuals and all those shit dependent on the flow of money going now that, like, unless you're willing to like commit political suicide, basically, like, you're never going to fix it. Like, it's going to be like
I don't know. But
I don't know.
I think your cynicism's coloring your idea a little bit there, because you got to remember, there are a lot of people who want these things, even in politics. There are people who, even if they're self-interested, narcissistic, like dickheads, they do have some semblance of rational thought and interest in making the country not suck. But as you said, political suicide for a lot of these people, right? But there are sea changes that occur in political sentiment that allow for legislation to change. I mean, dude, imagine somebody abolishing property tax, even in just Florida 10, 20 years ago. Like, it's something we all want. It's something anybody in America in a state would want. But, like, specifically Florida doing it, like, there had to be a lot of, kind of red growth, so to speak, for people.
There's property tax in Florida.
There's legislation now to get rid of it.
Oh, no, we'll save that.
But my point is, there are a lot of, I mean, I think the DeSantis guy literally like publicly aligned with it and was like, I want this. I'm going to try to get this done. And that would be political suicide in a different time.
Yeah, but this is at the federal level. There's a lot more money being talked about, and there's a lot more fingers in the pie.
Yeah.
To where in my mind, it'll take some shit like astronomically painful austerity measures or some shit, or just like expropriating all the assets of billionaires to be able to fix a problem like that.
Because I think more of it is made up than you might assume. Some of these issues are just like, it's a deficit. Like, Take the example of intergovernmental debt. There are instances where it's literally two organizations that have debt to one another. You know, that makes no sense. Like that. Yeah, you're making a face, but it's like, yeah, but
And yet, we
and yet
live
it
in
is
one.
because,
And yet
as
we
you
live
said,
in
neither
one.
of them want to take on the austerity of, all right, we'll suck it up, we'll take the debt. But both of them can just say, fuck off. In the case of like international debt, I mean, like, I just don't want to pay this. And it might damage trust in a currency and stuff, but I think the loss in trust in the currency will be less painful in the short term than the idea of adopting austere conditions to pay for it honestly. You know, I think there's a lot of inefficiency that can be cut out before we have to go to, all right, you're getting government given cheese and you're only allowed to have one kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not saying we're headed
No, I
in
know you're
that
not.
direction,
I think there's a
but
lot of positive resolutions. We're just not as negative as where we have to be fucking broke asses. Is the two generation force didn't want to pack it in, you know?
true.
Throw.
I don't know, man. I can't help but be very cynical about this shit
You
because
can. You could help but me. You could help with me, but you know, this
I don't know.
having fuck, bro.
I guess it's just not up to my impossibly high standard
Well, I
of
think it's hard.
governance.
I think it's just work. It's work to be optimistic in the face of all the negatives. So at the end of the day, you're not making policy decisions. So you're just a layperson. You just sit here and be like, yeah, I don't really care that much about it. This is fucked. This is fucked. Practically, I'm not the one making a decision about how to fix it. I could just observe trends. So you just,
Yeah,
it's by nature of your position. I think you're pressured into cynical outlooks on it. And you also are a fucking living cynical bastard. So
yeah.
not all, but things are
No, but
shaped.
I mean, it's not just out of nowhere cynicism per se.
Yeah, you've always been
There's
an emo bastard. Now you're it's coming from that. Now I get out there.
yeah, but we've enjoyed a standard of living that is the highest known for a very long time, and we haven't exactly taken care of the civilization that made that possible.
Good.
And so my general feeling is that, you know, we can try and, we can look to things like governmental debt and shit like that as, what's the word? Indicators or something. But my general feeling is that, like, things will be getting very hard very soon, sooner than we'd like to think. And it will be something that no governmental policy decision, at least a singular one, will be able to fix in the short term. Like, it's going to sting, it's going to hurt real bad. And that's not me just being cynical, like, oh, it's the end of the world, the apocalypse. It's more like these things kind of happen cyclically. You know, line does not keep going up forever.
Yeah, but the line doesn't
Has
have to
been.
go fucking vertically down.
Well, it's not going to go, it doesn't need to go vertically down to have big negative impacts. And it's not really the only indicator either. It's like the dude in The Big Short, the Brad Pitt's character, when he says, when they're celebrating that they're going to short the housing market and they're all jumping and dancing and shit, and he gets all pissed off because he's like aware that when there is economic downturn like that, like
People get fucked.
People get fucked and deaths of despair go up. And that's not even,
Yeah.
that was a
wasn't
recession.
Yeah, that was
That
a true
wasn't,
economic collapse.
Bro, in the fucking Great Depression, dudes were throwing themselves off a fucking building till they lost everything. Stop art.
Yeah.
So it's like we have a very, very short memory. I mean, of course, it wasn't in any of our fucking lifetimes, but I mean, I don't know.
My point is, America didn't disappear.
And I'm not saying it's going to disappear. And I'm not trying to say, like, this is the end, man.
I know.
It's not what I mean. It's just like old political order, the old social order, the old economic order is showing its age. It's showing its cracks.
Yeah.
And emerging chaotic events and conditions are going to change that. It's going to make it so it's not like the world if we live to be old men, which we probably will, the world that we live is going to look very different than the one we grew up in.
Yeah, but I think it could be better.
It could be.
Like
It very well could be. I'm not trying to. I don't.
Yeah.
That's the part that's open
It
ended.
comes off very dark. Comes off.
It does because it's.
Look at the time. Nothing ever happens.
Oh, that's just a bunch of that's
No, I know,
terminally that's terminally online people waiting for some shit to happen.
Yeah.
That they can then take power.
Continue to be gay about.
Continue to be annoying.
And then they go look out the window. There's like a music like, oh my god, and they go back to the computer typing.
Yeah. Or like a fucking fighter jet blows up the building next to them. They're like, oh my god.
Oh my god. I have to fucking tweet him.
I have to tweet him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, sorry, you were saying it's not cynical.
It's not to say that.
Yeah.
No, it's not. And this is something I've really had to try and balance a lot, because you're right in some instance that I can be a pretty pessimistic
nigger, so to speak.
dork. And I really want to emphasize that this is not coming from a place of like,
I know.
everything's with. It's more like,
yeah.
This is it's the seasons, man. Like, societies and civilizations have seasons, and we're no different.
Well, that I'll agree. I think anyone would agree we're in a bit of a down season. But I think the difference is the common precedent in a lot of civilizations is this usually where they start hiring a bunch of mercenaries and getting weird, and then they fucking explode because they forget how to repair the aqueducts. And I think that the world as it is now, with our access to lessons from the past, especially the recent past, in a digital form and folk form, like I think there are a lot of things that will prevent it from getting all the way shitified. I think there'll be a downturn. But I think there are enough reasonable people that when the going gets tough, it won't be necessarily a pressure to become more antisocial, like in a general sense of like being anti-society, being anarchic, chaotic, gang kind of shit. I think there will be a negative pressure that can cause people to reevaluate what's actually fucking important and say, yeah, all these things of the quality of life are nice, but ultimately, whatever was lacking from life as it is now, we can make a new society. We can prioritize those things moving forward, and in a decentralized way, those will be new priorities, I think. You don't think
I don't think so. Nah.
I think people have
I'm sure there's gonna be people who will do that, but I don't think it's trending towards more decentralization.
I don't think it goes there first. And I'm not saying more decentralization is the rule. I'm saying I think there's a general feeling that's growing amongst the public that this isn't working. And not purely in a material government sense, but in a way of life and worldview sense.
I'm not saying there's a lot of that, but I'm not pretend. I think a lot of people know and feel that they're kind of being taken for a ride, and things are not as they have been reported to be. But my only contention with that is where does that go next? Because it's never like, yes, what the fuck is that?
That wasn't me, sorry.
Yeah, sure.
That was that Chinese hack.
Oh, you should get out. You should take care of that.
I'll get the word, sir.
It's more like, we all know society sucks.
That sucks, but,
where it's like, it's not working, shit's not working.
Yeah.
How do we fix it? That's where the fight goes. Because everyone's become, I remember I've been thinking about this somewhat recently, of like all of my terminally online political radicalism in my teens. And everyone, and most people that I speak to and talk to just didn't really give a shit about it. And I, of course I was indignant. I was like, they don't understand. They don't get it. They don't.
Yeah.
And then over time, as I've kind of like, yeah, this shit doesn't really matter all that much. And there are more important things. And then everyone else, I see the trend is like now they're all into the terminally online
Yeah, I noticed that
politics,
too.
which is weird. It's weird because it's like I was here before. I'm the choppy like hipster, but I was here before you.
You genuinely were. You were.
Yeah, and it's like
autistically political for it was cool.
Yeah, and the one thing, and I know maybe that's like a kind of a snapshot or like a blueprint of things to come, but it's like I don't. You do see people
political discourse,
like you do see people like some more people organizing themselves in a way that aligns with their values ideologically or whatever.
Productive.
Generally, but the tendency because of and part of this is because of social media and the way it's structured as like a psyop machine.
Yeah.
And also like the incentives of like, outrage drives engagement, drives revenue, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like the way the incentives are kind of structured, I only ever saw people get more radical, more more radical, less self-aware, more like rabid.
Mm-hmm.
And the few people
more like
that
purist.
let's like just like extreme, the few people that I know from that time in my life who I bother keeping contact with, like they eventually extricated themselves from it because they felt what it was turning them into. It was making them into these just antisocial, angry, extreme people.
Yeah.
And
like don't have human values at heart. And I know, blah, 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 hard to establish a common law morality.
Yeah, whatever.
But you know what I mean? Like
care.
at the borderline at the end of the day, it's like, do you give a shit if you hurt people at all?
Yeah.
Even if they're not people that you know, do you give a shit? There's a lot of sentiment like that. Not that, interject
there is,
too much.
And it's a lot. People like are a lot more susceptible to this sort of shit than they think.
Yeah.
And I know it firsthand because I was susceptible to it. But it wasn't until I was like, okay, then what happens if the rubber meets the road with these ideas? And then I kind of thought them through and I'm like, then my actual like real Jack morality comes up and then I'm like, oh yeah.
Well, and
that's
for me,
not actually something I would like if I was faced with that situation is like, I don't think I could go through.
Now I actually have the power. I don't think I'm going to shoot all these people lined up against this wall here because they're different from me or something. Yeah.
Or they're not with my program or whatever.
For me, I think I wasn't brave enough to care as much as you to go that deep. And I think now, growing up, I look at it, I came at it more of like a top-down angle where it's like, I don't know specifically what the best belief system is, but I can tell you in broad strokes that like, these people tend to be very angry. And I don't think that that's a good place to make decisions from. And from your experience too, and you just being like, be careful of all these things. Like, it's literally like a viral ideology that will suck you in and convert you.
It's literally like poisonous.
Yeah. It's poisonous.
Because like, you ever meet people who are really, really into politics?
Oh, it's just the other day. I'll tell you in a minute.
Yeah, but like people who they're really, really not like they have a few issues or something that they feel strongly about, or they like a certain candidate
it's their only hobby and it's all they do.
Yes, they're really into it because they really don't have a lot of other shit going for them. It's not like, if they did not like if say you were like a Marxist Leninist revolutionary minded communist or something, and for the rest of your life living in America, capitalism like goes the way it's gonna go and it just sticks around. The revolution never happens. And you're banking your whole identity and sense of self on this shit. And it's like that. And then like, imagine being on your deathbed after having been this political radical your whole life. And the world is just not remotely even closer at all to your idea becoming reality. Like, I just can't imagine, like, I imagine the fucking, like, the dissonance of, like, It's like, I wish I fucking didn't spend all my goddamn time doing this,
Yes, that
but
fresh air.
but it's over. So like, yeah. And that's a common trait amongst people who are just really into politics. Like when I was really into politics, I didn't really have anything going for me.
Yeah.
I didn't really have a lot going on outside of it.
Yeah. For me, that was the case with Trump in 2016. I was kind of like that.
Yeah. And then you actually like live life and like, oh, I actually do have there's other things that are important. Then you're like, okay, I mean, it's good to keep tabs on politics and shit like that, but largely like it's my view that your spiritual life should be infinitely more important than anything else. Mm-hmm. And that includes relationships, by the way. Don't be pedantic.
No, I know you.
No, I'm saying that I'm saying that into the ether so the Redditors kind of like
they cringe. Some dude said on music, I don't know. Pain. I'm feeling pain from somewhere.
Yeah. I sense a disturbance.
He's been holding his fingers to his temple.
He gets like a Charlie horse.
Yeah, he's licking his head.
Yeah.
It's like I'm sensing too much good advice.
And I just like the radicalism loop. It's like a drug. It's like addiction, basically.
And you know what was a primary takeaway that I got from getting away from that I've been thinking about a lot lately because I've been having to grapple with it a bit just as I'm in like a kind of a transition where I'm like getting a job and shit. And I realized I was kind of prioritizing like freedom and the ability to like to choose things and, you know, your ability to have will over certain things. And I think a lot of us get tied up in that where you hate the idea of being tied down and constricted because you don't want other things influencing your choices. But that entire ideology is extremely like it's kind of narcissistic, right? Because it assumes that you know best relative to like fate. Because I'm not even saying it's like, or to even other people.
Relative to people who actually do know better than you.
There's so many people that know more than you in any given topic of life that you may have to make a decision, right? So the idea that the priority is, well, I don't want anybody picking anything for me. It's like, well, fuck. I mean, am I really going to know better on how to progress my like career or for whatever reasons or the best person for a relationship when I've dated, you know, a handful of people, or should I ask a fucking old person or, you know, or someone who's a bit older than me? Like there's an ego there that, and I think that extends into politics. That's why I brought it up. Is communism to me is the biggest example of this, where so much of it revolves. Well, if it was just more this way, which if it was just more the way I wanted it to be, then it would be fine. If everybody changed to be like me, then it would be good. And it's just like there's so much to life that entirely depends on you trying to get yourself to do what you actually want. And the idea that that is a given, that you don't actually have to put in this grand work to become a political adherent or find the right political ideology. The idea that you're just like, oh, I actually just found out how to live and how everybody needs to live. And my work isn't refining myself morally or spiritually, or it's getting everyone to behave like me politically and morally. You know, it's literally hall monitor cell existence, where it's like the point of my day is to get other people to act like, you know, in a way that I prefer, not refining myself into the best human I could be, you know, because I think in that process, a lot of people answer questions they have for themselves. And as you said, they extricate themselves from the ideologies because they realize these are not necessarily empowering if you actually think independently, because sooner or later you'll disagree. And then, you know, the purity spirals will occur.
You know, because ideology is just, it's a poor man's religion because it doesn't really provide a lot of space for exceptions to its pretty rigid rules. I mean, like it prescribes all of these oughts to reality that just like you can always find an instance where it doesn't.
It's not the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
and
they
that's
have
actually mathematically true, by the way.
Yeah. It's impossible. It's fucking impossible. Which is why usually religion and spirituality is a better conduit for that sort of thing, because It's based on experiential knowledge in it. It's
Yeah,
organic enough to where it can evolve and change. It's susceptible to ideological
but it's
fervor too.
acknowledged. It acknowledges paradoxes that are within itself.
Yeah,
You know,
because it's not trying to purport to be
logically rigid.
scientific,
Yeah,
logically rigid, reasonable, or scientific.
Yeah.
It's purporting to just be
Work.
true.
To actually work, which
Yeah.
ideology doesn't purport to do.
It's just like you can
Yeah.
find any inconsistency that blows up any
Well,
ideology.
Yeah, and if
Any,
you think
literally any of them. Like I could name them. If you named one, I could name one right now.
capitalism,
What about it?
I don't know. I guess I don't really think capitalism.
I guess
is
of
an
like,
ideology.
let's think more like libertarianism of like,
Libertarianism,
okay, if we
the
just
non-aggression principle.
yeah, non-aggression. That's where our capitalism, but that's
Okay.
also okay. But let's say okay, one of the libertarian axioms is like you want to decrease regulation and make the state as minimal as possible as to just enforce property rights, but not really interfere in the market in any other way.
Mhm.
And if you do that, like there will be sufficient competition in the market to where, liberty will basically be protected because there's not
The
one.
system that organically
Yeah, the
regulates
government does not is pretty limited in what it can do. And it's like,
monopolies.
yeah, monopolies. But then they'll retort and they'll be like, well, monopolies usually happen when businesses cozy up to the state. I'm like, yeah.
But that's only because the state. Yeah. Well, it's only because the state regulates violence and justice. If there was no state,
Yeah.
not to cozy up to anybody, they just have to have a bigger stick.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they and private companies in America will hire muscle to do shit,
Yeah.
do violence
Strike
for them.
breakers.
Strike breakers, the Pinkertons, mercenary like Blackwater,
Coca-Cola
fucking shit,
mercenary group. Yeah.
Coca-Cola, Hitman.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
so it's like
not
there's
unbelievable.
it shows a very like I don't know. It's like you kind of red team a lot of these ideas and just be like, all right, if I was trying to like fucking prove this axiom wrong, what would I have to do? Literally all I'd have to do is use the deregulation or whatever that libertarianism proposes, build my own mercenary army
Yeah.
and build it to a sufficient strength where I don't have to follow the law.
Yeah, I
like,
don't have to respect
where I
property
can,
rights.
it's like the cartels in Mexico. It's like they're rich enough, they're strong enough to where they can contest the military. So now they're outside of control here.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah,
there's
Mexico is kind of a libertarian paradise
it's
to
like
the nth degree because it's just like
some way,
they literally they're as powerful as the government and a lot more powerful in certain areas, right? So they
Yeah.
don't have to give a fuck.
especially in like
And they use it to such
Sinaloa
good
and
ends
elsewhere.
when they abduct people and like rape people, do sex
Cut people's
trafficking.
heads off and
Yeah.
with chainsaws
It's
and all
great.
sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's what any libertarian would do. It's like the
You
guy
know.
who wears the boot on his head. You know,
Well, he's a meme. I like him. I like
you don't
Bourbon
need
Supreme.
a driver's license.
I need federally issued ponies for every American. Yeah, I could get behind that.
I mean, shit,
We will solve the energy climate crisis via the use of zombies to produce physically generated
they're like
electricity.
Turning, like
Yeah,
Pirates of
they're
the
like-
Caribbean. They're like turning
Yeah.
the thing on the boat. Getting
Yeah,
whipped
or
like
it's
guac.
like it's like when Conan when
the
he's
wheel.
enslaved and he's pushing that thing around. Yeah,
The grind thing, the mill or
yeah,
whatever.
the mill. Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta get
But,
on
like-
zombies. We gotta get on that. China's ahead of us on that.
On zombies.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just one such example. Like if my private company can hire mercenaries to fuck
Yeah.
your shit up, and we're
Make-
strong enough to where we can contest the state. It's like
Yeah.
either the state has to be perfectly balanced, and so it's not powerful enough to really influence the market, but powerful enough to militarily keep order against any would-be mercenaries or private security firms. Like they're just
It's a
It-
moving
it's a-
target. Yeah.
it's a contrived condition that's never going to happen.
Well, and the idea of, okay, you have enough money. Like, let's say these are all the people contributing to the government. Like, the people who contribute the most to the government's funds to create a military to regulate, land rights or whatever, in the libertarian idea, the people who contribute the most money to them are the same people who would have the resources to get an army. So if
Exactly.
the
And
government's like, hey, you're getting too strong. We need more resources to enforce these laws against you. Could you give us money? They're like, no.
yeah,
Like,
like
no.
like where they're not. I mean, if it's a libertarian idea,
Or-
like they're gonna be taxing somebody to pay for it. So it's like pay us to come and fuck your shit up.
If it's a
a bit.
true libertarian paradise, it's like, yeah, sure, I'll give you a fucking Johnny Bucks. So I'll
Johnny
give you
Bucks.
Steve Bucks. It's like,
I'll
yeah,
give
we
you-
have
I'll
our
give
own
you-
currency for this part
We
of
have
the region.
our company stover.
Dude, and wait, here's 10 caps. Here's 1,000 caps.
Yeah,
That's what
it's
it's going to be
1,000.
like, bro.
Yeah,
They all have their own fucking retarded currency.
yeah, but it's like this is, and it's kind of funny because it's like it took me a very very long time to kind of realize that ideology works this way, and
Yeah.
that it's really just an expression of two things: of human wishes and sentiment, and class interests.
Mm.
Every ideology has some sort of class element to it, that like this ideology benefits a certain potential ruling class. So like
Yeah.
obviously libertarianism would benefit like robber baron, like Rockefeller type
Yeah,
people.
because they don't.
Communism
Yeah.
purports to
The
for the
broke-ass
working
niggas.
class, but it's
We can
really
call it whatever you
for
want.
it's really for the bureaucrats and the managers, like the people in the Politburo and
Yeah.
the KGB. It's
Yeah.
not for the working man.
Yes.
And
Anarchy,
you can,
autocracy for the broke ass nigga.
yeah,
He's
or
like,
it's
well,
like
nobody gets anything. Nobody gets to do anything.
anarchism is kind of like the class interest is warlords, you know?
Yeah, it's like if you literally have a fucking go, I guess you're.
Or if
you're out.
if you have a gang or something, like, you know,
I like that shit, dude. That's the Far
I
Cry
mean,
players. Those are
yeah,
the people empowered by GTA players.
yeah. But
Ah.
like you can always, there's always going to be like there you keep. All right, it's based in
yeah.
abstractions that can't ever really be
It's
useful. I don't
instantiated
think.
perfectly in reality.
But like people will still shill for it over and over and over again,
It's
and
what you
they'll
got.
dedicate.
It's what they
Yeah,
have.
it's what you got. But like, motherfucker, think it through. Think
man.
about what you're talking. Think of like steel man this shit for a minute.
Well, I think that is what they do, but I think they never get deep enough or I guess engage enough of their. It's as you said, you get lazy. It sucks you in. It gives, and the thing about talking ideologies now, especially online, is when you get in, it's like a clump. It's like, all right, here's your iconography. Here are your heroes, like Hassan Piker. Here are your talking points. Here's your community in case you feel like you're getting
It's a
alienated
fucking,
from
it's a
normal
religion, but it's like shittier.
Yeah,
It's shittier and lame,
It fits the gay science.
and it has an even worse track record than organized religion
Yeah, and their
does.
heroes suck.
The heroes are
what are your
oftentimes
heroes?
just shitty people,
It's like
or just
old,
people
fat
who are,
guy or ugly, like
or
fuck is this
murderous,
random-
genocidal warlord.
Yeah,
Like,
it's like, what the fuck are we doing?
uh,
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you say that because I'm curious. You know, if ideology in a sense is feudal, do you think that the adaptive view of that is kind of where you're saying, like what you're saying about cycles, where it's like, all right, like naturally these systems deteriorate, so it's just natural that they're going to build up and then come back down over and over and over again, or is it there's kind of a flexible view of ideology that maybe bonds with some sort of societal metaphysics that could actually, sustain itself indefinitely.
yeah, I mean, I mean, ideology can't really sustain itself indefinitely.
Yeah.
I don't think that's possible.
Purely secular ideology, mind.
Yeah, but even religious ideology has this quality as well.
Well, I guess, would it still be ideology if it can change over time? What is it then? Because that's what we eventually want, right? We want a
But it'll
flexible
have
system
to.
of
That's
belief.
that's. I think that's kind of a mark against it, honestly, because it has to change over time in order to be relevant
Useful.
and useful.
Yeah.
But it's like, I mean, there's plenty of religious traditions that really haven't changed all that much. That not that they don't change or they don't have
Yeah.
their own cycles and revolution and stuff like that. But the staying power for hundreds of years versus like in the modern world ideology, it's got maybe 50 to 100 years at the most. If you can get that far.
Yeah.
Like communism in the Soviet Union only lasted 70 years.
Yeah. And they had basically the best shot.
Yeah.
Look at the amount of influence they had starting out, the control over the starting conditions.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Chinese would be in we're a better spot.
Yeah.
But again, it's like how long's CCP gonna hang on? I don't know.
Well, and look at how that had to change. That's kind of my point.
Yeah, but it's like they've had it. Like there wasn't like it kind of blows up Mao's spot.
Yeah.
They're like shit. Maybe the supreme leader who we all said was super enlightened and shit actually was kind of retarded.
Legitimately.
It's like when Deng Xiaoping had to like change the whole program because it was clear that it wasn't working. It's like that's a mark against the ideology.
Yeah.
Like it's clear the ideology doesn't work because we had to change it.
Yeah.
We had to change it. And they're going to have to change it. Eventually, they're going to run into externalities and problems with the Xiaoping mentality.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to change it again, or they're going to fall apart and someone else is going to take over and try to change. Like it's just going to, it doesn't have staying power because it can't deliver the goods indefinitely because all of these ideologies, unless it changes, but I'm talking about like the specific
instance
that we were dealing with. Like it will have to.
Yeah.
You're right. But that's like, if it works so well, why does it have to change?
Well, it can only change. It can only work well by changing, I guess. Like, okay, we're away from the cold hard reality that we're in the abstraction space right now. Is what I'm talking about. So we've got the pure reality, which is if you write rules out on a sheet of paper, that is not going to work forever. Because the nature
that's
ideology. Yeah, but I'm saying you can have rules to update a system, right? So say you have a system of rules that's your ideology, right? Like let's say it's like 10 commandments. So you got a tablet, right? But then the last commandment or whatever is like based on these conditions, which are themselves based on interpretations of, a bunch of humans or whatever in some way, you can then add or remove commandments, And as long as there's like things in there to prevent the editing of the system purely in favor of like egoic, like we would say negative human aims, like just increasing power, centralizing power or wealth or whatever. If you can prevent updates to the system that are purely for the benefit of a single group and instead just like make the system function better for those inside of it, I think you can have a flexible ideology moving forward. I don't know what that looks like. It's probably very complicated.
It probably looks like Christianity.
No. Because Christianity doesn't do that.
Yeah, it does.
You think Christianity updates its beliefs regularly enough that it provides equal utility to the people that constitute it over its life? Like that's what I'm saying. It's become gayer as time has gone on in a lot of cases, And it objectively does not integrate the needs of the people that constitute it because every fucking 30 years there's a new type that's a split off.
I mean, you could probably argue that like
you could say that for a lot, yeah.
The early Christianity was a fulfillment of the original covenant that Moses made with God. I mean, that's kind of what Jesus says.
Yeah.
That he's here to kind of fulfill that obligation and start kind of a new thing. That is, it changes, but it's still kind of in that same, tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, like, you're right. I mean, it does kind of benefit.
Yeah. I mean, like the indulgences, that would never come into
like, but that's like 1,500 years later,
I'm not saying I could have done any fucking better. I'm just saying there needs to be an aspect of an adaptive ideology, if we're going to call it something, that prevents changes to it that purely exist to benefit a single group or are made out of just poor human aims. Like, fucking Mao being able to come in and being like, it's now part of communism that we have to get rid of these birds because I don't like them. And then it killed like a fucking billion
Yeah, yeah,
Chinese
yeah.
who like that is retarded and shouldn't have been allowed. You know?
Yeah.
So that's more what I'm talking about. How do you actually? I mean, it's a moral question in a way, right? But I think there's a way to get the best parts of human judgment to make a good decision. You know?
Yeah, I just don't think ideology is relevant
Well,
in that
call it whatever
regard.
you want. I mean, it's a collection of beliefs
Yeah,
that change
but
with
it's like
time.
let's say I'm the fucking king or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find, my minister of war or something.
Yeah.
But like the best guy for the job in terms of just acumen and skill and experience is a guy who does not share my views on important things, but not like he's my enemy or something. But like
afterlife.
like religious stuff or
Metaphysical
whatever. Yeah. There's no ideologically, if I'm thinking ideologically, then I don't want him anywhere near me or my shit. But if I'm
Well-
thinking pragmatically as like what achieves the best outcome in terms of in this case, military readiness and shit,
Yeah.
obviously he's the best guy.
Or what if you have an ideology that folds in pragmatism as my point?
But then what's the point? Because if you're going to fold in pragmatism, then any inconsistency that the ideology has is going to get rid of. So it's like you could kind of switch out any parts of it. So it's like, what's the point of having one then?
Well, because the rules
The thing I guess I'm like kind of
switch things out of is what stop talking.
Yeah. I think the thing that I guess I'm like advocating for is like an anti-ideological form of governance.
What does that even look like?
It's like it's like a state that's like formless almost.
Yeah.
Where it's like there's not a we fucking with the duck I'm gonna jump through this computer, I'm gonna fucking strangle you, I swear to God.
Formless form of government.
Where it's like
Fourth John of government.
sure there might be like prosperous time where shit's going pretty well, social trust is really high, material prosperity is high. We probably don't need to have an authoritarian monarch or something.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But if shit is in disarray and it's, society's on the verge of collapse and we have many crises, like that's when you would need dictator, monarch type figure.
Well, that's
what I mean?
sort of what a lot of governments have done. Like
kind of, but it's like
for instance, being like suspending elections, like
yeah, but
in wartime, he's like, we don't need democratic.
I guess my when if my idea was really put out
That's
there,
what we're talking about.
But like instead of still saying like I'm Zelensky, I'm the democratically elected president, it's like I'm the dictator of Ukraine now.
Yeah.
And then
so there's no question.
Yeah, so it's not like we're gonna change how the government functions in terms of its actual process and form, or sorry, in terms of its essence, but we're gonna keep the form the same. This is like there's still like I don't know what the formal name of the country, but it's probably like Republic of Ukraine or some shit like that. But it's not really a republic.
Yeah,
it's not. It's kind of a one-party state.
Yeah,
so it's like the state. I don't know. It should be able to change its. Yeah, it should be able to change its form in accordance with
what the situation demands.
What the situation is like. If
anyway,
I need,
but it can't be honest about the name because of
it should.
Perception.
And I guess it should be.
Yeah,
and I know why it's not, because it's like people
normal
don't.
Person hears
dictator, they freak the fuck out.
Dictator actions are like whatever, but if they hear that word, officially be problem.
But this is kind of symptomatic of industrial society and mass media, because it's like this is kind of how monarchical governments functioned in the pre-industrial era.
Or like their influence would be a function
or it's like when they need something, like when the British wanted to exploit the natural resource wealth of the colonies and in South America, North America, Africa, and elsewhere. Like they started companies of sailors and mercenaries and shit to go take care of that.
Yeah.
But they didn't like, it wasn't like there was a whole ideological theory behind all of it. It was a purely pragmatic
Yeah.
sort of thing. And then once they had started to really consolidate control of these new areas, they didn't need that shit anymore, so they got rid of it. And there was not an ideological thing there. It was just like, we don't need the British East India Company anymore because the Royal Navy is strong enough to do it itself. So
Well,
write on a piece of paper by...
I really agree with that. I think you could say it's for, you want dynamism from your
Yes.
leadership, where you want them to be able to flexibly, and that's kind of what I'm saying too. Like, I want them to be able to flexibly respond to issues using their vast resources effectively, because I think they use their resources often. It's like a rule of thumb that they use their resources. It's just, they use it on bullshit,
Yeah.
And
Or they hand it off to some
Bureaucrat.
existing institution or bureaucracy that squanders it or is so hamstrung by its own processes that it can't fix
effectively do
the
anything.
problem. It's like the fucking the invasion of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
The initial
Was good. Yeah.
was good because we utilized mostly special operations forces and some conventional air power. And it really it didn't take a lot to rally anti-Taliban factions in Afghanistan to bring the fight to the Taliban who we were trying to fuck up. All it took was like a couple of ODAs, some CIA ground branch shit, and some fucking bribes handed out here or there, and some judiciously placed airstrikes. And like, that was it that way. I mean, it was a fraction of the resources we ended up using then. But then the mission goes from the special operations guys who are in charge of like just fighting this kind of dirty, unconventional war, which was effective and cheap, to handing it off to
Military industrial
Army
complex.
War College, fucking military industrial complex. So like, oh, well, we need to have a conventional invasion of Afghanistan.
We
Therefore,
need to get an HR office out there now.
Yeah, no, and then we need all the logistics that go with that, like the Burger King in Bagram Air Base or some shit.
Yeah.
And so all of these other interests are trying to like cash in and get their fucking bee quit when it's like,
why are we here?
If the goal is to just cause chaos for the Taliban and kill Bin Laden, like,
we're not
what the
doing
fuck
that.
does any of this other shit have to do with it?
Yeah.
And it's because this is how the form of government works is like when you have a war, you hand it off to the generals to do the war.
Yeah.
And these guys only do war conventionally.
Yeah.
Now there's other generals who are not like of that type. But it's like there is a class element here where it's like
the general is firmly in a different class from a spec ops guy.
Yeah, and especially a general who went to a service academy.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than commissioning through,
actually going
OCS or ROTC or something like that. Like if you went to West Point or the Naval Academy, like you're going to be like, there's an old boys network to this sort of thing. And it's like, it's no different in the civilian side of the government either.
And of critical
But it's
importance, as you said, it doesn't produce people who are interested in ending conflicts efficiently per se.
No. It's like I would trust to be the actual like Green Berets and Delta guys who actually had to like fucking put this plan together.
Yeah.
Because like they don't have all the conventional resources at their disposal, so they have to think outside the box a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the CIA in Baghdad. Every time they leave their fucking compound base in an Up Arbor G-Wagon, they get shot up.
Yeah.
And they're like clueless as to why that's happening. And meanwhile, DIA, that has like a quarter of their funding and resources, is dressing like Iraqis, driving around in Iraqi cars, blending in with, because they don't have a $100,000 SUV and Ford 80 Seals on the payroll to go roll with you. Like they have to they kind of have to fucking beat spots.
Yeah, and I think there used to be an earnest interest, maybe in just more people than there is now, of being resource efficient. And I think
Yeah,
it's just a
but
general trend of where it's like in the past, you
you
know,
had unlimited money
well, that
and
unlimited money.
unlimited resources, so it
Yeah,
can like there's like a blank every time they want to do something, they have a fucking blank check.
one I
So of
think,
course they think of the most expensive fucking way
yeah,
to solve a
we need to
problem.
put a bomb in his cigar and then
Yeah.
sneak it into his compound. Yeah. Whereas I think before that, even that era, where it was kind of that matching of people who were ambitious in their planning and then, yeah, basically unlimited fun, like blank checks. Before that, it was like people, there was maybe more of an earnest interest in accomplishing the goal. Like they were maybe a bit more goal oriented. And then it was like, okay, now throwing more money at this problem actually does fix it because we can trust these people on average to be judicious with how they spend it and not just produce a needless bureaucracy like
Yeah.
every other problem now where it's like, if you give money, like LA homeless is the
Like a
biggest example.
bureaucracy that has a function,
Yeah.
but becomes a permanent fixture.
Yeah. And has
Like it does
yeah,
it's created to serve to fix
a
a
temporary
specific
problem,
problem, and then
which
it
it doesn't
just
fix.
hang there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's
because it's
actually
against it.
directly,
It's a, it
exactly, it's
yeah,
against its own
it's against
interest.
their
It's directly
interest to fix
incentivized,
it.
like the LA Homeless Commission, where the top employees that are getting paid like a shitload of money. It's like that stops when the homeless people are caught. You
Yeah,
would actually, like, if you were a pure materialist with not really, principally morally interested, where you think, you're
and you
entitled somehow to the money of your fucking fellow American, why the fuck would you fix the problem that's giving you money?
why not instead when you say you're building affordable housing, you're really building like you're calling it affordable housing, but it's really like luxury apartments
That no homeless person is going to
contracted
fucking live
out
in.
to the some building developer that no homeless person's going to live in.
Yeah.
They obviously can't afford that.
It's
So
it's
it's like
sad.
it exists to perpetuate the bureaucracy exists to perpetuate its own processes indefinitely
It begets
and
itself.
expand and build more of them.
Yeah.
It's like the Borg.
It literally, it's the exact opposite of how businesses are run in a normal, common economy too, where there's no reward for leanness in bureaucracy. Like if you have
No,
more
because
dudes
yeah.
as a bureaucrat, you're more powerful, you're cooler. You have more, you're like, I
Now
don't know, 100 dudes
there's
under me.
not necessarily. It depends. It depends whether or not the government that's setting up these bureaucracies is in crisis, and I'm talking like real crisis.
Yeah, World War.
Because when they're in real, like think back World War II, like a lot of like we created the OSS, precursor to the CIA, for this exact purpose because we didn't have an intelligence service.
Yeah.
Or like a centrally organized intelligence service. It was created so that we could, whoa, shit, we're in this giant war, and intelligence is becoming a greater and greater part of of in modern industrial warfare. So we need to do something
Yeah.
with this. But then afterwards, when the problem has been addressed already,
These people aren't gonna go, all right. It's like the one, yeah, right. That one Greek guy who was at a farmer. No, we need you to come lead.
the Roman guy,
Yeah, Roman guy.
Cincinnatus,
And he's just like, yeah, I'm done. All right, I'm going to go back to be a farmer. It's like, yeah, see you, guy, making the most money he's ever had in his life.
do you think
His nobility-
Alan Dulles is going to be like,
he's like, oh yeah, now I'm in a position where I can
think
like kill anyone I want, basically, and I don't
yeah,
really possess I'm not the type of guy who is worried about, my eternal soul or whatever, the ramifications on my own psyche for doing that. I think I'm going to stay. I'm thinking I'm back, and I'm here to fucking stay.
Yeah.
Are you going to piss, by the way?
No.
I gotta sell that. Why you said why the?
I've never pissed in my life.
Well,
I
take
just
a
keep
break if you
rehydrating.
wish.
I keep rehydrating. I keep
Piss straight in your
rehydrating.
mouth.
No, I reabsorb it.
Do you have no bottle? You have no need for one?
I have no need for one.
Well, I'm gonna go over that.
All right, yeah, go for it.
All right. All right. What's the craziest thing Alan Dulles did?
Kill JFK.
I thought he was into like, jerking off horses or something. That is pretty well.
No, he was in it for the power, dude. He was not like a pervert or anything like that. It's kind of like a shark, man, that he just wanted to win the chess game with Soviets.
Mm.
That was his whole deal.
If only he was Cole, he would have actually been like a sick hero.
I mean, yeah, it's just like, I don't know. There were a lot of something of shit that like I could kind of, yeah, it's kind of like you're so willing to win this to where it's like you've lost all sense of proportion.
Yeah.
Where it's like, and you've also, everything has been subsumed to this grand geopolitical chess game with the Soviets to where, you don't care if a country that might have gone to the left gets completely consumed by civil war as long as the Soviets don't get it.
Yeah.
It's like that kind of thinking.
Yeah, I do think it's kind of bullshit that we get blamed for that when it's like, if you really think about it, it was like the least democratically elected part of our government did all that shit.
Yeah, but it's like that's kind of my point when I like bring up the deep state and shit like that. It's like because the elected leadership that we see are not always making the policy decisions.
Yeah.
Like there is, and
Dulles was can't be honest with this when they have pressures from that.
Because it's like it's an informal system. Like it's a formless state hiding behind a form.
Yeah.
And it's just produced a situation where it's like everyone is so confused all the time as to what's actually going on.
Yeah.
No one can really, like, if they've not been completely disillusioned with it, they're hopelessly like indoctrinated or just dogmatically
legitimately purely self-interested and just hiding.
Yeah, we're just like they're or maybe just
type or an activist judge type or like a lot of them they don't really care about doing their job well.
They're here to cash in.
Yeah.
They know the game and they're going to cash in.
It's tough.
Yeah, and then, it's how you get, Congress always having an app like single digit approval ratings, yet their incumbency rate is ridiculous. It's ridiculously high. It's like, how is that possible? How is that fucking possible? Like, maybe it's because that's not really where the power lies. You're away.
Yeah.
It is when they're trying to stop you from doing something that would go against the apparatus, but
not when you're trying to positively
not when you're
policy.
not when you're doing something in line with the apparatus's goals.
Let's make a town that doesn't suck. It's like, no, we can't. We don't have the
more bombs.
How about more money to Israel?
How about more bombs? More missiles?
I need more bullets.
Let's put more bombs over there.
The other day I actually realized how to fix all of this, but I think instead I'm just going to play video games and jerk off, probably. Like me alone, I could fix it, but I'd much rather play video games and jerk off, I think. What do you think about that?
Hey man, it's your life.
Now, yeah. And then that moment, I knew there was nothing left in it.
I mean, as long as I can... God, I just want to see Russia engulfed in nuclear fire. I just want to see that once. I just want to see it. I just want to see it one more time. Damn it! I just need to. It's like what can me? It's like I really, really wants nuclear holocaust. Is it respectable bipartisan?
Just respectable bipartisan.
God, I just want to see Bird.
I'm trying to think if I can...
I see a lot of the hypocrisy now that we're on this thing with the Ukraine stuff that's been in the news the last week at Wake Yourself. In particular.
Yeah, we'll tell you more.
It's just... So... Like you saw the blow up with Trump
Zelensky and Trump.
Zelensky. And I can't, I'm
Wait,
sitting here
really
and I'm
quickly,
seeing it.
can I
Yeah,
just add this on and say the fucking bronze is perfect? I just found it.
they're, duh.
Uh, Traffic lights train you to obedience like animal in cage, especially at night when no other cars around. Having to be in passenger seat while moron is driving, I couldn't even stand to this friend and asked him if he wouldn't mind if I jacked off while we drove between two cities. Yeah, man, sure, go ahead, no big deal. He agreed. So I know there was nothing left in it. Sorry. So
So many
let's keep
great
moving.
There's so many great
Dude,
lines
it's
in that
so
fucking
fucking
book.
like the more I look back at it, like it is actually just like it's a very interesting piece of art, you know.
Yes, it's a very interesting book.
And his theories what gay people are equally interested in.
Yeah. But with the Zelensky shit, I see the two sides of the narrative reacting to that exchange. And of course you have the one that's like the pro-Ukraine, usually liberal narrative that
Yeah.
is, well, Russia invaded and, Trump is supporting a dictator over democracy and,
Yeah.
we're throwing your allies to the wolves and this is just horrible and bad and we should not ever make a deal with Putin.
Yeah.
And then you have the other side of like, well, and this is kind of more Trump's angle, but it's that like, oh, fucking, Ukraine kind of started this shit and, corruption this and corruption that. And a lot of it is, and I see how people are reacting to it, that like Zelensky is this just corrupt puppet, money launder, slush fund scumbag. And on the other hand, he's this brave, defender of democracy and shit like that.
He's the most powerful comedian of all time, by the way.
Yeah.
Former late night comedian, bro.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And I see a lot of the indignation around this war, and in particular the sentimental, like ideological significance of it. And knowing what I know about how this war came to be and the geopolitical struggles between NATO and Russia and stuff like that, I can't help but think that like it illustrates to me that there is 100% psyops all the fucking time.
Yeah.
All the fucking time. All the fucking time. About every fucking thing. I've actually been arguing with some of Lee-based friends about this, about Ukraine and stuff.
Well,
and
just to agree with you further, because there's an interesting point that adds context here. I know a guy who works for the NSA, and I was playing pool with him the other day, and I was talking to him, and he's literally like, yeah, man, like, I can't really tell you anything. He's like, but what I can say is, like, most of the shit you see on the internet, like, politically allies, like, it's fake. Like, it's not like, no, like, people admit, it's like, no, it's literally made by a group to
by
alter
us.
your opinion. Us or other powers to
Yeah.
affect your opinion.
Yes.
And I was like, damn. I was like, really that much? He's like, really? You just like to be so
Yeah.
diverse, like, really that much?
Yes.
And that was the beginning of me being like a kid. Now I kind of don't. I can't care. It's as you say, you can't care
because
too
you
much
can't.
because you don't know what the reality of it is. You're too confused.
Yeah. All you can really go off of is history.
Yeah,
And what you can
what
glean from the
practically
history.
occurs. You know,
Yeah,
like what
and
you
what-
like the
yeah.
Zelensky Trump blow up, where it's like that was
Yeah.
a little bit of how the sausage was made, probably. You know.
Yeah.
But sorry, leave this first.
Yeah, and then the argument kind of centered around they really wanted that making any sort of deal with Putin would be capitulating to a dictator, and that he's poised to steamroll Europe and shit.
My ass.
And I'm like, I know who this sounds like. I see the impression that's being made here is that Putin is like the mustache guy who did all this 8 years ago. But knowing what I know about the mustache guy and Vladimir Putin is that Vladimir Putin is not him.
Yeah.
And does not have the capability to do that. And
Much
nor
worse
does he
painter.
have
Much worse painter.
Yes, much worse.
Yeah, there's something he has.
But he doesn't have the
interest.
capability, nor does he really have the will to do that.
the desire, arguably, to take over Europe? Why?
He couldn't. What does he gain?
What does he? I mean, is there any indication he really wants to?
Like at least like mustache guy, he had an
Well,
ideological
globalizing
reason
ideology. Yeah, or universalizing.
for doing it, like living space
Yeah.
for his people
elimination
and clearing
of the
out
evil
clearing
race.
out
Yeah.
all the people, who lived there. Like
his
that was,
ideology was not cooperative with.
and it's like, well, what's
everything
Putin's ideology? Well, Putin's ideology is Czechism,
Yeah,
which is a Russian thing that no American fucking lives. The Americans really don't know about Czechism, but it's really like they have a deep state over there too. And so Czechism is just like, to be a Czechist is to be a supporter or member of the security services, the intelligence community, and military, police, basically like the hard power side of the government.
Yeah.
In Russia. And they have kind of an ideological understanding in that ruling class, which is protect the Russian state at all costs. Like whatever needs to happen, whatever we need to do, protect it from those who are trying to destroy it.
Inside or
and
outside.
a lot of the paranoia comes from like the KGB, because the KGB was a very paranoid organization because Stalin was very paranoid.
Makes
they kind of
sense.
copy this paranoia.
Yeah.
And so,
And
but
it's
they're not
very
just
useful.
paranoid without,
It's an
but they're not
adaptive belief
paranoid.
as a spy.
It is. Because they're not just paranoid for no fucking reason. They've been invaded many, many times.
Yeah.
And so they're very paranoid about being invaded and fucked over again, because
Fair.
Hitler invading Russia in World War II they lost 20 million people.
Yeah, I think
20 million
personally,
people,
I do
bro.
not ever think about that. I didn't even know they lost it.
Like
20 million
they had the most
casualties.
casualties out of any player in World
20
War II.
million people.
And like 60 million people died in that war. So a third of them were Russians.
Holy fuck,
Yeah.
dude! That
So
means
it's like you can kind of understand why they're so why they are willing to flatten Chechnya to keep the state together.
yeah,
They're willing to
Because they've seen
assassinate
what it looks like
people.
when
They're
they feel
willing
like
to
they
do
don't.
they're willing to invade Ukraine
yeah.
to protect their periphery, to protect the Russian state.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of, if you know what your adversary wants, which is continuity and security above pretty much everything else,
Yeah, clearly above their
expanding
economic
NATO
future.
expanding NATO into Western Europe and putting a Western sympathetic, aspiring EU, aspiring NATO country on their border, which we did. That's what Euromaidan was
I don't know
in
what that is.
2014. It was basically a coup that we sponsored in Ukraine.
Oh,
Because up until that point, Ukraine had been ruled by largely pro-Russian, corrupt politicians who bent to Russia's geopolitical wits.
mm,
That was kind of the way it was. Following Euromaidan, all that shit gets flipped over.
now they're U.S. sympathizers,
Yeah.
except for fucking right now because they're bitching at each other apparently.
Well, they're bitching, but it's like, hey man, this is the one like trigger point for the Russians where like all bets are off.
Yeah,
Like you
State
miss
security.
around. Yes, state security. And I'm not trying to say like they are necessarily trustworthy or good or whatever. It's
no,
just
no,
like
you're not.
when you're dealing with geopolitics on this level, like you have to be kind of cynically realistic, and you have to really know what the incentives and what your enemy or your adversary really wants.
I don't even think I wouldn't put that in the bank of cynicism at all either, because it's like relative to the stakes.
Well, you have to err on the side of cynicism. Typically, you have to kind of err on that side.
I mean,
because
it's not like Russia
the
is
distrust.
presenting. I don't know what their signaling is from their deep state is locally or globally about their motivations for taking Ukraine. Really, I know they
Well, I
want
mean,
to protect their sovereignty.
the initial thing was the denazification stuff,
Yeah,
which is like, hey, when that Euromaidan happens, oh look, Kraken, Azov Battalion, all of these far right groups start popping up all over Ukraine and training for war.
yeah.
Like the first, from 2014 to 2021 until the actual, no, 2022, 21 was
Mhm.
there was a like low intensity insurgent conflict in East Ukraine between Russian separatists in Ukraine, backed by the Russian
And the
army and
Azov
the intelligence,
battalions type thing.
and like regular Ukrainian army, but like a lot of Azov battalions and a lot of those types of groups like got their start fighting in that war. That's where they got a lot of that experience.
Well, what's the far right incentive to hate Russia in that scenario?
Because
You're an Azov
the
guy, like,
Chekists are not openly or not like what's the word? Fervently pro-Soviet,
yeah,
but they're not anti-Soviet. A
yeah.
lot of them have a view of the collapse, like Putin himself has said, the collapse of the Soviet Union was one of the great geopolitical disasters of the 20th century.
Mhm.
And Putin's a Chekist. He was in the KGB.
Yeah.
And that's the sentiment of a lot of other Chekists in Russia.
Where like the Soviet Union should have continued to exist, and therefore they hate the Nazis because they contributed to its decline.
Yes, and therefore the Nazis hate them because they are the inheritors of that Soviet legacy.
Oh, interesting. That is a very weird thing to hate someone
and like
for.
why are these Ukrainians like adopting all this Nazi ideology and iconography? So like, well, one of the SS brigades in World War II in Ukraine recruited a bunch of Ukrainians because the Ukrainians were pissed off because of Holodomor. So they hated Stalin.
What was
so
Russian purging to Ukrainians?
Well, it was kind of an intentional starvation of Ukraine by Stalin because they were. Yeah, no, that was in the 30s.
Damn.
But like, so when the Germans roll through Ukraine and the SS is like, hey, we need volunteers to fight Soviets, like a lot of Ukrainians are like, sign me up. I don't care about whether they're aligned with ideology.
The cultural legend to that area where they're like, this was a valiant thing my ancestors did. I still think these are kind of bad guys in an age now where their meaning is probably, there's a probably, like, fuck yeah,
there's a pretty prominent Ukrainian expat community in Canada. And in one of their communities in like Toronto or something, one of their cemeteries has a statue to the Ukrainian SS as like a memorial. Yeah.
Damn.
So it's like, these things, it's like, it doesn't seem so simple as democracy versus authoritarianism. It seems like it's kind of like corrupt authoritarianism on one hand and really powerful corrupt authoritarianism on the other.
Yeah.
And so it's not so black and white, but of course people can't help but look at that.
And in defense of people in history, like there's a lot of just more on the neuroscience side, not to go too far into a digression, but there's just an inherent structure to the brain that is naturally compressive. That is at every given time, it's constantly reducing things, and it's also constantly encoding memories and events as they occur into a way where you can more easily see contrast. So it's not like a desire that comes out of nowhere for people to make things simple in black and white. Like it is a genuine nature of the human mind to discretize things and quantify them into little boxes because it's easier. I mean, you think about it, it's less energetic to reference a memory like that instead of going like what you just said. Really interesting, by the way. I'm just fascinated by all the little pieces that come in. And that's my point, is it's so much more detailed than you're taught. And as it's probably discussed, even by people that are going into conflicts, they don't even realize are directly consequences of these long-term cultural forces. And, it's just easier to not think about it the way it's easier to think, because I mean, that is the peculiar thing to me. Like Ukraine, I think they have or at least had a fairly large Jewish population. They don't strike me as the type to get into Nazis like a lot of people, where it was like the anti-Semitism was sometimes a motivator. I feel like nowadays it's more of a motivator than it was back then. Like Nazis originally, it was like, we want all this, here's a lot of good stuff. Also, the Jews suck and we want to kill the Jews and all these other minorities that we don't like. But the Jews kind of stick out because they complain the most. But no, I'm kidding. But nowadays, I feel like most of the time I hear about Nazism, it's strictly in the context of like, mainly we don't like Jewish people, Yeah. Maybe that's my limit. I mean, like, I'm not talking to a lot of Nazis, I don't really know.
Yeah. But like, we're talking about the Ukrainian ones in particular.
They hate Jewish people.
I mean, probably.
It's more of an aberrant
but
the
SS was able to leverage their grievance against the Soviets.
Yeah.
Had a lot more of a, lasting impact than any anti-Semitism. I mean, I'm sure there. I mean, it's Eastern Europe in the 30s and shit. So it's like probably,
Yeah,
but
probably. Yeah.
But when they're thinking about going to war against the Soviet Union, they're not thinking because my opinion or opinions of Jews is more like, oh shit, I remember that time when they fucking starved all of us intentionally and have been like brutally oppressing us for decades.
Yeah, they're
So it's
fucking
like
close.
now their enemies are on the march and they're asking if they want us to fucking go help them kill Russians.
Yeah.
And they're like, sign me up.
Yeah, sure.
Bro, like,
you look around,
but-
it's like they're just sitting, squatting, smoking a cigarette. They're like, yeah, sure, I don't have any plans. It's fine.
yeah, man. There's literally no work.
But
Sure.
The thing is, that's maybe how it was. Fast forward a couple years, now it's, Zelensky has a 4% approval rating.
But now there's not
a little will to fight there. I can imagine.
there is in the sense that like, hey, we got invaded.
Yeah,
But it's more like, can we win? No, they cannot. And this is where I feel bad for Zelensky.
Yeah.
And this is why I think Trump, like, I know why Trump did it. I just don't, I wouldn't have done it this way.
Yeah.
I wouldn't try to pivot and make it seem like this was Ukraine's fault or Zelensky's fault.
Yeah.
Because it fucking kind of wasn't.
Well, they got invaded.
Because
they did get
they
invaded.
got invaded, but we also gave them this false impression that we were going to be this
we're going to be with them till the end.
faithful ally to the end.
Yeah.
And we fucking aren't. We never, the cynical understanding and fucking, what's his face? That CIA guy. The big curly hair.
Oh, Barb, I know you're talking about.
Bustamante.
Yeah, everyday spy, Andrew Bustamante.
Yes, that guy. He's
Totally
even
not a
said
spy
like,
anymore.
pop. Once you're in the CIA,
Yeah.
But it's like, he's even said, talking about this issues that they get to test all these weapons against the Russian army.
Yeah.
They get to degrade the rest of, like, it's a purely cynical fucking geopolitical calculus. They don't care that
Millions of
Ukraine
people
is
die.
they don't care that country's being fucking ripped apart. And now that it's inconvenient for us, both inconvenient, but also I think it's
Futile.
politically sensible because unless we're willing to fucking
Do a nuclear
go to war over
yeah.
it
Let's not
with
do
them,
this.
like there's no point to keeping this going. It's just going to prolong their suffering. And
Well, and it's just, that was the thing, is the way the conflict was handled, it just never really seemed like ending it was the prime interest. And
it was kind of to just fuck with the Russians and degrade their
test shit
ability to
out,
fight,
which is the most
which is
brutal
kind
thing.
of stupid. It's kind of stupid because now the Russian army is like the most experienced army in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Experienced in this kind
Modern
of warfare.
with drones and shit.
Yeah.
Like that's
With modern
that's
weaponry.
Bad. That is bad.
Yeah. It's like they're actually kind of stronger now.
Yeah. And now,
Believe it or
we
not.
have closed borders, so they wouldn't be able to use all their highly trained guys to just walk in here. Like,
It's not like they've basically been assassinating defectors and former spies with impunity for the last 100 years, right?
oh,
And my soup is tasting very much like Polonium 212. I wonder how that got there.
oh man,
Well.
I can't believe that guy accidentally stabbed me with that umbrella. Well,
And now my back really fucking hurts.
oh.
And now I feel like I'm dying.
now I'm all red. Why am I turning a different color?
Damn, I got on this plane and the plane did not land. Like,
Oh yeah, hey, speaking of that, while I have you, what the
Yeah.
fuck happened to the Turkish guy?
what Turkish
Or
guy?
not Turkish guy, Bashar al-Assad, the complaint guy?
The Saad? What
Yeah,
about him?
Did he blow up?
That didn't blow up. He's in Russia.
Wait, whose plane blew up? I thought someone's plane crashed. They
Yeah,
died.
Prigozhin.
No, not that. I always think of the fight, you know what I'm talking about.
Hot dog man.
No, the soy jack, no, not that. Where he's, like,
Yeah, Brady's LeBay.
pointing
Ah.
out the window at the missile cone.
Yeah.
Dude, that's brutal. That's fucking insane. The world we live in, where like that is a possible piece of art that guy's kids will see. He's like,
Hopefully.
Yeah. Oh,
Hopefully not.
I
Yeah.
really fucking dude. the death of a public figure in your family, that has to suck ass. Everybody's like, that dude was a bitch anyways. Like, God,
Nah, I mean,
Uncle Prigozhin, no.
he went against the Chekists and didn't go all the way.
Yeah, well, I don't know, man. I mean, I wonder what Russia's motives are for prolonging the war in their own right. They could have done.
Well, it's kind of like it's the same reason they knocked over Georgia in 2008. No NATO, pro-NATO, pro-EU militant countries on our border. Period.
Georgia was pro-NATO.
At that time.
What they do to it?
Well, the president who won in Georgia.
Yeah.
In 2008 or 2006 or 7. It was like a year or two before 2008. He was a Western educated, lauded by the Western press and foreign policy establishment as being a democratic, pro-EU, this, that, and the other. Tries to bring Georgia closer to NATO and the EU. What does Russia do? Invades the country and knocks it over in 5 days.
Damn.
And that's in 2008.
When you say knock it over, like what is the state they're in now?
Like depose the government.
And replace it with what?
With a new government that is sympathetic to the Russian interest.
Damn, I actually have a friend
It's still Georgia, but
went back there recently.
Yeah.
No word of that. They got a really weird language. You ever see their language written out?
Yeah, I know. It looks
what the fuck is that?
The script looks very strange.
Sluggy, dove.
But it's like, that's what they'll do. That's what they're willing to do. And it's like their one fucking thing.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't want to blame Ukraine for it. Cause it's like, what would you do in Ukraine's shoes? It's like, if superpower comes in and fucking bankrolls your defense and basically gives you the tools to like stay alive. It's like, yeah, I'll take them. But at the same time, if like, at no point were they kind of like thinking, are we kind of being like, how are we being used here?
Yeah. Well, and also
because there were points where
solution?
Zelensky and Putin were both willing to come to the table and negotiate an end, and we were like, fuck no, no way. Not happening. So it's like it's obviously we instigated this fucking thing. It's just wow, when you hear the talking point that's like, well, Russia invaded, it's like, yeah, they invade.
It's what they do.
Of course, that makes them look like the bad guy here, and they're not great. Like they're
No,
not. There's no good guys and bad guys in this conflict here.
Yeah.
There's all like we're all kind of shitty.
Yeah.
It's just Putin says this and has been saying it for years that like NATO expansion is his biggest concern.
Yeah.
Because he does not trust the West.
Fair.
Because he is a Chekist.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
And I mean, fuck.
So it's like if you're like, I'm a very peaceful guy, but if you book my nose, I'm gonna shoot you in the fucking head. But that's the only thing that I'll get violent over is you booping my nose, and then you boop my nose and I shoot you in the head. It's like, say, look at this.
Yeah.
This violent murderer. And
it's weird because
but he also said that's what he's gonna do if you did that, and then you did it anyway.
It's like we can argue about whether or not it was right for him to invade based on that, but I get your point. It's like, regardless of whether or not it's fair, it was obvious to people paying attention that would occur.
People who knew anything about Russia and about how Russia works. And I'm not like a scholar on fucking Russia or anything.
That's where
it's
you're
just
wrong.
that I suppose maybe I have a big brain. I don't know. But it's just like, I don't know. It's infuriating because I just see all this like stupid people just talking about it.
Well, don't worry. It doesn't affect you. It's not like they were spending your money. Hey, can I see the check?
350 B?
Dad was getting a little irritated about it earlier. He was like, I'm not a big fan that there's like $100,000 of debt for each American citizen now, basically because of this. It was like, Jesus fucking Lord.
Well, I mean, that was gonna be there no matter what.
Yeah.
We would have found someone else to give that shit to.
Yeah.
Fuck, we might have given it to Taiwan.
Well, you hear I think that semiconductor place just invested a fuckload in America, so we are formalizing our movement of the fucking proverbial spice back to America. So,
About time. Should have died 20 years ago.
yeah, well, I think there was kind of a nice aspect of because a lot of countries were sort of more self-interested on the production fronts. There was a implicit hegemony in that because they were just focused on building themselves up. And now it's coming to the point where it's like products are crossing country lines so much more easily now because of some of these software products that obviously go with the internet, right?
Yeah.
And now it's the competition is becoming more sharp because now it's like, okay, we can directly compare these products. Any consumer in the world, they don't like the Chinese version of this, they can immediately get the American or vice versa. Now it's on. Like a legitimate, man, the same goes for ordering shit. You know, if I don't like the American calculator, you know, I'll get the Chinese one. It won't let me type in 1989 for some reason, but it's better in every other way, you know? And I think it's going to be a weird commercial competition over that moving forward.
Yeah.
But who knows? I'm glad we're here rather than there.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. I don't know. I get worried when there's a lot of fingers in the pie and
Yeah,
the
but I
party
wouldn't.
the party's over.
Yeah, but it's like that. It's always like that. There's always some
Yeah,
party that
it's
you're
like,
coming in at the end of historically as a born human. I mean,
oh, that's not really what I mean.
huh.
Or like the entrenched interests in keeping, like, say, Ukraine war going.
Oh, yeah.
That's more what I mean.
Well, hopefully cooler heads will prevail and you don't get fucking blown up.
Hopefully,
I'm
bro,
getting definitely blown up first. If that happens,
I'm
I'll miss
joining
you.
an FPV drone unit and I'm droning myself.
Cut out the middleman.
Yeah.
Jesus. Let's get a quick right bicep flex before we end.
Quick right bus.
Look at that. Roll that sleeve up.